Picture this. You're holding a smartphone in your hand, but when you look at it, you can see right through it. Not a gimmick, not a trick of light. A genuine functioning device packed with cutting-edge processors, cameras, and sensors, all visible through a completely transparent shell. It sounds like something pulled straight from a sci-fi movie, the kind of device Tony Stark might casually pull from his pocket. But if recent whispers from the tech world are to be believed, this fantasy might be closer to reality than anyone imagined. Welcome to the story of Xiaomi's Mi Glass, a smartphone concept so audacious, so technically challenging, that even mentioning it sends ripples through the industry. This isn't just another incremental upgrade with a slightly better camera or a faster processor. This is a fundamental reimagining of what a phone can look like, how it can function, and what it means to push the absolute boundaries of modern engineering. In this deep dive, we're going to unpack everything surrounding this enigmatic device. What do we actually know? What's pure speculation? What are the monumental technical hurdles standing in the way? And perhaps most importantly, if Xiaomi actually pulls this off, what does it mean for the future of smartphones and the tech giants who've dominated the space for years? Let's begin. The ghost of transparency. Past. Xiaomi's first experiment. Before we dive into the present rumors, we need to understand that Xiaomi has flirted with this idea before. Back in 2018, the company launched something called the Mi 8 Explorer Edition. Marketing materials showed a device with a transparent rear panel, offering a tantalizing glimpse at the phone's internal components. Tech enthusiasts went wild. Here was a phone that didn't hide its guts behind sterile aluminum or glass. It put them on full display. But the excitement was short-lived. Tear-down specialists and reviewers quickly discovered an uncomfortable truth. The transparent back wasn't actually showing real components. Instead, Xiaomi had created decorative representations of circuit boards and chips, placed beneath the glass for visual effect. The actual functional internals were hidden underneath, completely out of view. It was style over substance. A beautiful illusion, but an illusion nonetheless. The backlash was swift. Critics accused Xiaomi of misleading consumers. Fans felt betrayed. The Mi 8 Explorer Edition became a cautionary tale about overpromising and under-delivering in the pursuit of aesthetic novelty. Fast forward 7 years to 2025, and the company appears ready to take another swing at this concept, but this time the stakes are exponentially higher. Mi Glass. What we think we know. Information about the Mi Glass is fragmentary at best. No official announcement has been made. No press event has been scheduled. What we have instead is a patchwork of leaked patents, insider whispers, concept renders, and speculation from usually reliable industry sources. Here's what the rumor mill suggests. A genuinely transparent design. Unlike the Mi 8 Explorer Edition, this device would feature actual transparency. The rear panel, and possibly portions of the front, would allow you to see through the phone entirely. Not fake components, not decorative tricks, real see-through technology. Miniaturized and repositioned components. To achieve transparency, every single internal part would need to be radically redesigned. Chips, antennas, sensors, everything would have to be shrunk down and strategically positioned to minimize visual obstruction while maintaining full functionality. Advanced camera systems. One of the biggest challenges would be the camera array. Modern flagship phones have massive camera bumps housing multiple lenses, sensors, and processing hardware. Mi Glass would supposedly eliminate or dramatically reduce these protrusions while maintaining photographic quality. Next-generation materials. The structural integrity of a transparent phone poses massive challenges. Traditional materials won't work. Xiaomi would need to develop or source specialized transparent composites strong enough to withstand daily use. Futuristic industrial design. Beyond just being see-through, the phone would reportedly embrace a design language that feels decades ahead of current devices. Clean lines, minimalist aesthetics, a device that looks like it belongs in 2035, not 2025. If even half of these rumors prove accurate, we're looking at one of the most ambitious consumer electronics projects attempted in recent memory. Why transparency matters, and why it's so, damn difficult. Let's address the obvious question. Why bother making a transparent phone at all? On the surface, transparency might seem like a purely aesthetic choice, a way to stand out in an increasingly homogeneous smartphone market where most devices look virtually identical. And yes, aesthetics play a role. A transparent phone would be instantly recognizable, a conversation starter, a status symbol for early adopters who crave uniqueness. But there's more to it than vanity. Engineering is art. A truly transparent phone demonstrates mastery over miniaturization and design efficiency. It shows that engineers can pack incredible computing power into spaces so small and well-organized that visibility becomes possible. It's a flex, certainly, but a meaningful one. Consumer psychology. People are naturally curious about how things work. A transparent phone satisfies that curiosity in real time, creating an emotional connection between user and device. You're not just holding a black rectangle, you're carrying a visible piece of advanced technology. Market disruption, in an industry where innovation has plateaued, where the difference between one flagship and another often comes down to marginal camera improvements or slightly better battery life, a transparent phone would be genuinely disruptive. It would force competitors to respond, to innovate, to take risks they've avoided. But here's the brutal truth. Making transparency work is phenomenally difficult. Consider the obstacles. Battery technology. Lithium-ion batteries are opaque. They're dense, they're filled with chemicals, and they take up significant internal space. You can't just make them transparent. Engineers would need to either develop new transparent battery technology, which doesn't currently exist at commercial scale, or position the battery at the phone's edges where it won't obstruct visibility. Camera sensors and lenses, these are some of the bulkiest components in modern smartphones. Glass lenses, sensor arrays, image processors, they all require space, and they're all opaque. Creating a transparent camera system while maintaining image quality is a Herculean complex problem. Structural integrity. Glass is fragile. Transparent composites can be even more fragile. A phone needs to survive drops, scratches, pressure, and daily wear. How do you reinforce a transparent structure without adding visible support elements that defeat the entire purpose? Heat management. Smartphones generate heat. Processors, batteries, wireless charging coils. They all produce thermal energy that needs to be dissipated. Traditional phones use metal frames and heat shields. What happens when everything needs to be transparent? Antennas and connectivity. Wireless signals require antennas, which are typically metal. Transparent antennas exist in research labs, but scaling them for commercial production while maintaining signal strength is no small feat. These aren't minor technical challenges. They're fundamental engineering problems that could derail the entire project. Let's imagine for a moment that Xiaomi actually succeeds, that they unveil a fully functional, genuinely transparent smartphone that doesn't compromise on performance, camera quality, or durability. What happens next? Well, Xiaomi has long been positioned as a value-oriented brand. Great phones at accessible prices, but not necessarily at the cutting edge of innovation. Mi Glass would shatter that perception entirely. Overnight, Xiaomi would become synonymous with bold, forward-thinking design, the company that dared to do what Apple, Samsung, and Google wouldn't. You can bet that if Mi Glass succeeds, competitors won't sit idle. Samsung would likely accelerate transparent display research. Apple, though notoriously conservative with design changes, might explore transparent elements in future iPhones. The entire industry would be forced to respond. Once consumers see what's possible, expectations change. Suddenly, traditional smartphone designs feel boring, dated, unimaginative. Buyers start demanding not just better specs, but better experiences, better aesthetics, better innovation. Manufacturing transparent components at scale would require entirely new supply chains, specialized factories, new materials, novel assembly processes. This would create opportunities for suppliers while potentially destabilizing existing manufacturing relationships. Transparency would give Xiaomi license to charge premium prices. This wouldn't be a budget device. It would sit at the top of their lineup, competing directly with flagship offerings from Apple and Samsung, but with a unique selling proposition those companies couldn't immediately match. The ripple effects would be enormous. One of the most intriguing sources of information about Mi Glass comes from patent filings. While patents don't always translate to actual products, they offer valuable insight into what companies are researching and developing. Recent Xiaomi patent applications suggest several fascinating technologies. Documents describe display technology that extends beyond the front face, potentially wrapping around edges or even covering the entire device in an uninterrupted transparent screen. This would allow for novel user interfaces and interaction methods. Rather than multiple camera bumps, patents detail a unified lens system capable of multiple focal lengths and computational photography techniques, all packaged in a compact, less visually obtrusive form factor. Filings hint at enhanced near-field communication capabilities and seamless integration with smart home devices, positioning the phone as a central hub for connected living. Perhaps most crucially, patents describe internal framework designs that provide rigidity and protection while remaining minimally visible. Think of it as an exoskeleton that's there when you need it, but invisible when you look at the device. Some documents outline antenna designs using transparent conductive materials, potentially solving one of the biggest technical hurdles. Of course, patents are just intentions. They represent possibilities, not certainties. But the sheer volume and specificity of these filings suggests that Xiaomi isn't just daydreaming. They're actively working on solving the hard problems. Not everyone is convinced that Mi Glass will deliver on its promises. Plenty of industry veterans have voiced doubts, and their concerns are worth examining. Xiaomi has already burned consumers once with faux transparency. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. Many believe the company won't risk another PR disaster by releasing something half-baked. Some components simply can't be made transparent with current technology. Batteries, certain chips, display backlights. These have physical properties that don't allow for see-through designs. Critics argue that any transparent phone will inevitably have significant opaque sections, defeating the visual impact. Even if transparency is achieved, will the phone survive real-world use? A device that shatters from a waist-high drop or scratches after a week in a pocket isn't viable, no matter how cool it looks. Miniaturization and repositioning of components could negatively impact battery capacity. Consumers might get a transparent phone, but one that dies by mid-afternoon. That's a tough sell. The specialized materials and assembly processes required for transparent construction would drive prices sky high. If Mi Glass costs as much as a premium laptop, the market will be tiny, limited to tech enthusiasts with deep pockets. These critiques aren't unfounded. They represent real technical and commercial realities that Xiaomi must address if Mi Glass is to be more than a concept. Even if Mi Glass doesn't become a commercial blockbuster, its existence, or even the serious pursuit of its development, signals something important about where technology design is headed. For decades, consumer electronics have been defined by concealment. Hide the internals. Make everything sleek and seamless. Present a clean, unified surface that doesn't reveal the complexity underneath. Transparency represents the opposite philosophy celebration of complexity. Rather than hiding the technology that makes our devices work, why not showcase it? Why not let users see the intricate dance of circuits, the precise arrangement of components, the miniaturized engineering marvels that fit in the palm of your hand? This shift isn't unique to smartphones. We're seeing it in architecture, where buildings feature exposed structural elements, in automotive design, where electric vehicles showcase their battery packs and motors, In fashion, where transparent materials and visible construction details have become high-end trends. My Glass, successful or not, participates in this broader cultural movement toward transparency as a design principle. It asks, what happens when we stop hiding our technology and start celebrating it? The user experience question, what would it actually feel like? Let's get practical for a moment. Suppose you're holding Mi Glass in your hand. What's the actual user experience? Honestly, the first time you pick it up, the transparency would be mesmerizing. Watching internal components light up as the phone processes tasks, seeing data flow through circuits, it would transform the mundane act of using a phone into something almost magical. Pull this device out in a coffee shop or on public transit, and you're guaranteed to draw eyes. It would be the ultimate conversation starter, probably the most visible status symbol imaginable. But after the novelty wears off, practical questions emerge. Does the transparency make the screen harder to read in bright light? Does it create glare issues? When you're watching a video or reading an article, is the visible background distracting? And then there are maintenance concerns. Transparent surfaces show every fingerprint, smudge, and speck of dust. Keeping Mi Glass pristine would require constant cleaning, potentially pretty annoying for users who want functionality over aesthetics. There are privacy implications too. A transparent phone means people can potentially see what you're doing from the back. While the screen content wouldn't be visible, the mere fact that your phone is active might reveal more than you'd like in certain situations. The actual lived experience of using a transparent phone might differ significantly from the idealized vision. And that gap between concept and reality could determine whether Mi Glass becomes a beloved innovation or a beautiful failure. The competition. How Apple, Samsung, and others might respond. If Xiaomi successfully launches Mi Glass, the competitive landscape shifts immediately. For Apple, there's a bit of a dilemma. Apple has built its reputation on being first with features that actually work well, not necessarily first with experimental technology. They would likely observe Mi Glass carefully, learn from its successes and failures, and potentially introduce their own transparent elements only when the technology is truly ready. So you can expect a one more thing reveal years down the line if transparency proves viable. Samsung, on the other hand, with more diverse product lines and a willingness to experiment, could respond more quickly. They might introduce transparent elements in their Galaxy Z series foldables or in limited edition flagship variants to test market reception. Google's approach would probably be different. Rather than focusing on hardware transparency, Google might explore software interfaces designed specifically for see-through devices, new UI paradigms that take advantage of visible components and layered visual elements. And then there are Chinese competitors. Brands like Oppo, Vivo, and OnePlus would likely race to develop their own transparent models, potentially creating a transparency arms race in the Chinese market where visual differentiation matters enormously. The competitive response would depend entirely on one factor. Does Mi Glass actually work, and do consumers want it? If the answer to both questions is yes, expect rapid industry transformation. If either answer is no, Mi Glass becomes a footnote, an interesting experiment that didn't catch on. The verdict? Revolution or gimmick? So where does that leave us? As of now, Mi Glass exists in a peculiar limbo, too credible to dismiss as pure fantasy, too unconfirmed to treat as certain reality. The patents are real, the rumors are persistent. Xiaomi's history of attempting bold designs is established. But until we see an actual device, held in real hands, tested by independent reviewers, torn down by engineers to verify its transparency claims, we're dealing with educated speculation. What we can say with confidence is this. Whether Mi Glass succeeds or fails, the very fact that a major smartphone manufacturer is seriously pursuing complete transparency tells us something important about the state of the industry. Innovation has become incremental. Year over year, phones get slightly better cameras, marginally faster processors, incrementally improved battery life. These are valuable improvements, certainly, but they're not transformative. They don't fundamentally change the user experience or challenge our conception of what a smartphone can be. My Glass, even as an ambitious concept, pushes back against that incrementalism. It asks bigger questions. It takes genuine risks. It dares to imagine a device that looks and feels radically different from everything currently available. And in an industry that desperately needs bold vision, that willingness to risk failure in pursuit of something genuinely new deserves recognition. The final word, when transparency becomes truth. Here's what the story of My Glass ultimately represents: a test of whether the smartphone industry still has room for genuine innovation, or whether we've entered an era of permanent iteration. If Xiaomi delivers a functional, beautiful, transparent smartphone that people actually want to use, it proves that boundaries can still be pushed, that engineering challenges can still be overcome, that consumers still hunger for devices that feel genuinely futuristic rather than merely upgraded. If they fail, if My Glass turns out to be another decorative exercise, or if technical limitations make it impractical, it demonstrates the harsh realities of physics, manufacturing, and market economics that constrain even the most ambitious visions. Either way, we learn something valuable, because the pursuit of impossibility, even when it falls short, often yields unexpected innovations. The technologies developed to achieve transparency might find applications elsewhere. The design philosophies explored might influence future products in subtle ways. The conversation sparked might inspire other companies to take their own creative risks. Xiaomi has thrown down a gauntlet. They've said, in effect, we think we can make a phone you can see through, and we think you'll want it. Now we wait to see if they're visionaries or dreamers. If Mi Glass is the future of smartphones or a beautiful mirage, the answer will reveal not just Xiaomi's engineering capabilities, but something deeper about where technology is headed and what we, as consumers, truly value. Transparency, after all, works both ways. This device will make visible not just internal components, but the truth about innovation in the modern tech industry. And that might be its most important contribution, regardless of whether it ever ships.